right? The author of evil is God. The author of evil is God. You're listening to World Reading Club, presented by Hakeem Ali Bokus Alexander on Spreaker, Social Podcasting, and Wisdom, Social Audio Inc., presented for World Reading Club in association with ExercisingYourMind.com, WorldReadingClub.com, and Uniquilibrium. This edition's reading focus comes to us from Pandemonium by Ed Simon, 2021. And there's a short excerpt here that I'm going to get to in a moment. And it has to do with my thesis, which is that all knowledge and all power is in all places at all times, that I call the omnifactors. And Flora Elizabeth Carrasco, who says, the way you want to live your life is mastered by your own self. And you can find it in various places. Christopher Howard's University of Excellence, where he said on one of his recordings, the universe is a formless neutral substance that responds directly to the nature of our thoughts. Wallace D. Wattles in The Science of Getting Rich, who says there is a thinking stuff from which all things are made and which, in its original state, permeates and penetrates the interspaces of the universe. And on we find this over and over again. James Allen quoting Jesus, "As a man thinketh, so is he." In The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale in 1956, who says, we become what we think about. In the book and the movie The Secret, thoughts become things, or thoughts are things, right? And we have this idea on and on again. I really do like how Wallace D. Wattles points out that, in also the book The Science of Getting Rich, that the monistic theory that all in one and one at all is of Hindu origin, which in also one of the other books I was looking into, I don't recall it right now, it might actually be this one, Pandemonium, I'm going to read from this short excerpt here, but that the Brahman, there are millions of faces of Brahman, of the one Brahman. And one of my yoga students who's from India, who also once said to me when we were having a conversation, he says, one God, many forms. And this, Ulysses S. Anderson, U.S. Anderson, who wrote the book Three Magic Words, well, the three magic words are all in God, or also God in all. And so also a little bit of pushing against some of the doctrinal narratives that have never really agreed with me because they don't make much sense in these stories of the fall and how, God happened to turn his back or walk away from the garden to leave his mischievous creations to be able to be tempted to eat the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, or the same God getting mad and destroying the Tower of Babel or Babel and confounding the languages when all these people were doing were basically showing feats of cooperation and engineering. And then in Enoch, first Enoch, we have the angels Semyaza and Azazel being buried in valleys and covered with rocks and held there and being imprisoned until they will be destroyed by fire. And none of it makes any sense whatsoever if you understand what even the reasonable and logical conclusions you can even come to from the Abrahamic perspective. It's baffling that followers of any of these religions could not have this understanding, and how we cannot see that these stories have to be made up, or at least, if nothing else, they're metaphors, and that we know that the author of evil is God just as much as God is the author of good. It has to be that way. If there's a being, if existence, right, which is being called God, always has been, it was never created, it has always has existed, it is now, and it always will be. It's eternal, it's omni, it's all, right? The omni factors of omnipresence, everywhere at all times, omniscience, knows all things at all times, and omnipotence, has all power at all times. Thus, why I say all knowledge and all power is in all places and all times, and follow the paradigm of Flora Elizabeth Carrasco that says the way you want to live your life is mastered by your own self. And so with that, we'll take a look at what Ed Simon has written in Pandemonium, which, published in 2021, is a visual history of demonology. And it has some very interesting things to say that are quite supportive of my long-held thoughts on these that have been distracted and blurred, and that I've had to fight with because of so much of the information that comes to us from the world that we live in, and also from many of the organizations that, well, teach us these things about our spirit and put the fear of God into people. So this is on page 27 of Pandemonium, which is nice, because I could say, if I wanted to, that 27 is a numeral 9, and that I'm going to put the end, and 9 is completion and ending and death, and so I'm going to kill stupid ideas about existence or God. At least that's what the thesis is setting out to do for the book and the dual doctorate of divinity and the PhD. So let's take a look here. Ashmedai. Let's see. Or Asmodeus he talked about. Alright, so let's take a look. So this will begin in this last paragraph that finishes on page 27. For the vast majority of classical pagans, including Canaanites, Sumerians, and Babylonians, from whom so many demonic names were borrowed, nature was neither good nor evil. Malignant spirits were certainly real, and to be feared and controlled if possible, but they were not representatives of any cosmically absolute evil, for such an evil didn't exist. When Jewish monotheism posited that ours was a world governed by one creator, the problem of evil, known by theologians as theodicy, became much more pronounced. And if you want to look up the word theodicy, it's spelled Theodicy. Okay? So continuing, backing up a little bit, when Jewish monotheism posited that ours was a world governed by one creator, the problem of evil, known by theologians as theodicy, became much more pronounced. How could the supposed existence of one all-powerful and all-good God be reconciled with the brutal reality of our evil world? Earlier biblical texts, such as that of the prophet Isaiah, render God fully responsible for evil, so that every failed crop, every famine, every plague, and the death of every innocent child is finally his fault. And so, what is he referring to when he talked about that Isaiah, the prophet Isaiah renders God fully responsible for evil? Well, in Isaiah, let's see, I think it's 47 something. Let me take a look here. Yeah, it's Isaiah 45:7, and Isaiah 45:7 says, I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. Isaiah 45:7. So continuing and backing up a little bit. So, continues reading. How could the supposed existence of one all-powerful and all-good God be reconciled with the brutal reality of our evil world? Earlier biblical texts, such as that of the prophet Isaiah, render God fully responsible for evil, so that every failed crop, every famine, every plague, and the death of every innocent child is finally his fault. While still a totally orthodox understanding of the Lord, there is a certain natural resistance to its otherwise logically unassailable conclusion. I mean, those words right there are what I've been thinking, but I'm so glad there are books and people who write things to help me get my ideas out, because that's exactly what I was thinking. I just didn't formulate it in such an elegant way, right? There's a certain natural resistance to its otherwise logically unassailable conclusion. Continuing, in embracing the coteries of minor demons who exist in pagan religions, there is a devaluing of God's awesome omniscience. Right? Once again, and this is exactly also how I've been thinking, right? In embracing the coteries of minor demons who exist in pagan religions, there is a devaluing of God's awesome omniscience. In God's awesome omniscience, there is the uncomfortable realization that he must be the author of evil as much as good. Right? Because that is the logically unassailable conclusion to God, which exists as the omnifactors. All-knowing, all-powerful, all-being. All knowledge and all power is in all places, at all times. That's it. It's the logically unassailable conclusion. It's a conclusion that I've come to over and over and over again, and it gets pushed back time and time again. People arguing and giving God pronouns like he, right? And all these different things. God is everything. God can be he. If you're a he, if you identify as a he, there goes God. If you identify as a she, there goes God. If you identify as it, there goes God. When you see a dog, there goes God. When you see a pebble, there goes God. When you behold a tree, there goes God. There is no separation between you and I or anything else. Separation is Maya. It's the veil. It's a delusion. We are all one and connected. Our individuality is an experience that we love to have and is great and it's magnificent. But we are all the billions of faces of Brahma, expressing ourselves as we wish, because that is as it has to be. Good and evil and everything in between. We are all God. All of us. Each and every single one of us. Using the power, all of the power that we have and we know how to have, based on our understanding, to do whatever it is that we wish. And yet we choose to believe in limited things. All knowledge and all power is in all places at all times. All places. Whatever place you or anything happens to be, there is the power of God. To be used as you wish, according to your free will. And we use it any way that we want to. This is the logically unassailable conclusion. The way you want to live your life is mastered by your own self. The author of evil is God. Of course, that's clickbait, a title, because the author of good is God as well. And God is the author of everything. For anything that anyone is the author of, the doer of, the being of, there also goes God. Existence itself. You, me, and everything. You've been listening to The Author of Evil is God, presented by Hakeem Alibokis Alexander on Spreaker, Social Podcasting, and Wisdom, Social Audio Inc., presented for World Reading Club in association with ExercisingYourMind.com, WorldReadingClub.com, and Uniquilibrium. This edition's reading focus has come to us from Pandemonium, A Visual History of Demonology by Ed Simon, 2021. Also a little excerpt from the Isaiah 45:7. And it is sponsored by The Blog Dealer at blogdealer.com, where you can find your health, fitness, and fat reduction products and services. Until next time.